Oh, excuse me. Nice. Trying to get it all out now.
I hear that.
And we are live.
Hey! By some dark wizardry, we are here live with you with the Game Space Game Show. Thank you so much, Steven, for letting us know that we are actually here. Steven is producing with us from some dark recesses of San Francisco. We're going to be talking to him a little bit about why that is. But here on the Game Space Game Show, we have a great show for you today. Along with Steven and myself, I'm Dame, and we also have with us two of our other co-hosts. Ralph, how are you doing here today?
Doing all right. I'm just sitting in darkness.
All right. I mean, I guess that seems to be the theme. Matt, how about you? We also have Matt here.
I'm doing well, man. Doing very well.
All right, fantastic. We've got a great show here. Like I said, Steven is somewhere in San Francisco right now, tunneling through to his home PC to host to produce our show. But Steven, why are you not in front of your computer right now?
Well, there are many reasons that I could say that would be why I'm not at a place such as that. But what I will say is that this weekend, I guess this Friday was a very big Friday because NeoWiz and Bless, the big game Bless that's coming over from Japan, and I think they also have a Korean release. It is being westernized, and they did a big show on Friday for several hours to let people try all the new changes, because they've actually done a lot of work on it to localize it. But it's not so much just that they're making everything English. Okay. They are also, I mean, they've updated some of the graphics. They've updated the combat. And then, of course, they've also updated the payment model. So there are a lot of things that they're doing to kind of bring people into the fold in a Western audience.
Okay, fantastic. So Bless Online is the game. This is an MMORPG, correct?
Yes, I should have mentioned that.
Okay. Okay. That's all right. That's all right. That's why they pay me the big bucks to ask the questions that nobody.
The hard questions.
The hard questions.
If you've never heard of Bless, then yes, it is an MMORPG to be exact.
Okay. Now, when I've been following this very loosely. But one of the things that I know, you and me both. But one of the things that I noticed about Bless is that it seems to have a very similar play style to Guild Wars 2, from the standpoint of like some kind of dodge mechanics and a little bit more of like the active skills and stuff like that. At least that's the impression that I get from the video. Steven, you're kind of an avid Guild Wars 2 player, so share with us a little bit about your experience. You got to have hands-on with the game and try a couple of the classes. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that experience and is that comparison a fair one?
I would say maybe in a normal case, yes. Okay. And in fact, I'm going to show a little video while we're chatting about it. This is a little bit of my gameplay, and I've got tons of gameplay. I mean, I've got probably a good 20 minutes or more of gameplay that I'm going to get all set up for people that might be interested and want to watch. But in the video that I'm showing, I'm playing a Guardian, and in Guild Wars 2, the cool thing about Guild Wars 2 is you did have the dodge mechanic, and you do have dodge mechanics in Bless as well. The control scheme was a little bit funky for using them actively. Okay. But some characters definitely had really good dodge mechanics that were also skills, like the mage was one of them that I found had a really cool dodge mechanic. or it actually had a dodge ability. But normally in skills you press 1 through 9 or whatever to activate a skill, and then once you activate the skill, that's pretty much it. That is not the case in the new upgraded Blessed Combat. That is the way that the game kind of works in the Japanese version.
Okay.
But in this version, and if you're watching the gameplay, you might notice that the screen looks very big on the character. That's just because I kind of screwed up on encoding this video for this stream, but it will be fixed.
It looks artistic.
It is artistic. You can call it artistic.
There we go.
But so basically, what happens is you have chain skills. That's
what I was noticing from the video. It looks almost like there's a charging gauge, which it looks like you maybe start out with like one ability, and then as the gauge charges, you can morph that ability into other abilities. Does that sound about right?
It's not really the gauge that you're seeing whenever you hit your first skill. There's a gauge on the side, and that's more along the lines of like your time before you can't chain the skills, like it'll go away.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So in that sense, it's a bit like Terra then.
I was just thinking that actually. Yeah, it reminds me of Terra.
So very much so. It does have like a Terra. It kind of has a Terra feel to it, especially some classes like the Berserker really has like a feel of. Like in Terra, I forget what the class was. Was it a warrior that you had like the really big?
The big sword was not that.
Wasn't
that
the
was
warrior.
just the warrior? Yeah, but the big axe that was the Berserker class for that one.
Okay, yeah. So this is well, that's a guardian, but the Berserker has a very big axe in this game. And that did feel more like Terra because a lot of his really big swings, you kind of had like that little bit of time, and you had to be positioned correctly, and that's very Terra-ish. But so the chain skills are really interesting in the sense that each skill can branch off into 3 different chains, and those 3 different chains branch off into another additional ability. And
that's neat.
Yeah, so it's and for the gameplay test that we did, like you had 3 choices of chaining abilities, and they had different keybinds. So one keybind was R, one was T, and one was Y. So for example, if I ran up to an enemy and I pressed 1 for my like starting attack, I then could choose R, T, or Y to go to like my secondary attack, and then that chains into a third attack.
Oh wow!
So it's a very interesting combo system, and like learning and knowing what abilities you want to chain into are really important because some might chain into a defensive move, some might chain into a crowd control, some might chain into an AoE. So depending on what position you're in, you're going to maybe want to do different things. And another thing that's really important to note, which a lot of the players who have played the Japanese version, they were looking around and they were like, how do I auto attack? Because I auto attack in the Japanese version. There is no auto attack.
Oh wow. Okay. So everything is skill based then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. That makes me happy.
Yeah. It's very it's a very different system than what.
I was going to say, it reminds me a lot. I don't know if you guys ever played Lotro at all, like Lord of the Rings Online, but when they introduced the Warden class, it had a gambit system where like you built a series of attacks up, and it unlocked some type of like a ultimate ability. But again, depending on which buttons you hit, either knocked it into a defensive or an offensive, or even like a taunting attack and things like that. And that's what this sounds like a little bit anyway, from the way you're describing it.
I kind of remember that class.
Yeah, like you had the big wheel chart trying to figure out all the different combo things you had to do with it. Yeah,
it was kind of like that. And it, at first I thought it was going to be more like a card system, but the problem is that another interesting thing is that you have different abilities that you can mount, is what they call it.
Okay.
And so, for example, like the mage had like an ice power, and then they had, you know, like a fire power. But then like those were like the two main skills that you could have, and then you know, you can switch between, I guess. They're called stances, but I think of them whenever I think of a mage and I think of like changing between, you know, ice and fire. I think of the elementalist in Guild Wars 2, like attunement.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's kind of what I want to call it, is like you can switch attunements and go from like ice to fire, and then whenever you do that, it switches, you know, all your combo skills that you can choose. So you can mount different skills, and you can only have 2 mounted at a time. So, for example, if I chose like ice and fire, then I could only go between those two.
Sure.
But I could switch out, you know, fire for, you know, like electricity or air or something like that, and then I would have a choice of those two. Now, the interesting thing is that once you have a skill mounted, any ability that chains off of that skill tree is set. So like I was saying before, like whenever you press 1, it gives you like 3 options of how you want to chain that the skills going forward. You can't change those chains at all. Like in terms of like, I might want to switch it out for another skill. You can't do that. What you can do is you can upgrade skills so that you can kind of change a little bit of how they work. You know, like I want them, you know, to maybe like use less mana, or I want it to have a different crowd control effect. But you can't really change them. So whatever you start with, you're pretty much stuck at this time from what I see.
Okay. It sounds a lot like the ESO system for upgrading skills.
Yeah.
You get the base level skill, and then you get to a certain point, and then you choose 1 or 2 different ways you can work the skill. So sounds interesting. Just as a follow-up to that too, with combat in the game, how is mobility in combat? Like I noticed, so watching some combat videos even with like the mage class there, and it looked like you're doing a lot of run and gun. Is that a thing? Like how does this work?
Yeah. Yeah, so the first thing I did whenever I started playing, it was me and another fellow who was sitting next to me, and we zoned in and we realized we were in the same area, so he was like, duel me, and I was playing the mage, and he was playing a guardian, and between the two, like, he really couldn't do very much to me, because I was so far away from him. I was running, I was gunning, and he couldn't stop me. I mean, like, I would throw a damage over time on him and just like run like a little girl. And, like, nothing that you could do. And like at one point he was like, "Can you just stop so I could just like hit you a few times?" And I was like, "Okay."
It's like this isn't punch for punch, man. Like
that's right.
I ended up like I got him down to where he had like a sliver of health, and then I just like stopped and I was like, just finish me off so we can see what your skills do. Because neither one of us knew like what we were doing.
Yeah.
And I had no idea. Like at that point, I hadn't even learned about chaining skills yet.
Sure.
Like, if I knew about chaining skills, because you know, if you were watching it, like you don't press the same button, you press different buttons, and I wasn't sure like what I was doing, so I was just like, I was basically just like slapping buttons, but
face roll the keyboard, hope for the best. Yeah.
And for a mage, that I learned very quickly that for a mage later on in the game, not doable. Like one of the things that I talked to the developers about is you're not going to be able to face roll your way through combat in this game. There's no just simple auto attack. There's no like win button. It's like if you're not chaining your skills properly in situations, you're pretty much done. So,
you're toast.
Yeah.
Now with that, with no auto attack, with all of your abilities being pretty active, how does targeting work in the game? Is it a tab targeting system? Is it a kind of click on the mob and target that mob? How does that work within the game?
A little bit of both. It depends on the class. So it was definitely tab target whenever I was like for the mage. Most of what I did was tab target.
Okay.
But then they also had classes like the ranger that has like an insane area of effect. So you know, it was, you could basically put the AoE anywhere that you really wanted to. It wasn't on target. So that was kind of cool. And whenever I watched, because I played ranger but not for very long, but one guy who was really getting into ranger, like I saw him like use that ability, and it's kind of like the arrow rain where like firing arrows down, but like it was a long channel. Like it's definitely made as kind of like a mass AoE support to like a guardian who's like tanking or something like that. Just
You've
like
got mobs clumped up. Yep.
And then like you just sit there and do it because you can't really take damage while that's happening. So
well, you can. It's just not going to end well for you.
Yeah. Like if you want to get the full channel out of it, it's not one of those moves where you have a bunch of guys on you and you want to do that because you're just a sitting duck while you're doing it. But really, it was a really cool move. Whenever I saw him do that, I was like, wow, that's really cool. Because I've seen that move in a few games, but like the way that the animation was done and the length of time and just like the amount of damage you do in an area, they really make it to where you could be like a ranger who's a bomber. Instead of, you know, a lot of rangers are like single target, I guess. And they kind of made it to where you can focus on AoE in certain cases too, which was really cool.
All right, excellent. So with all this information or all the experience you've had with Bless right now, what are some of the things right now that, as you're looking at the game as it is, that you would say, okay, before release, this is something that the devs really need to get ratcheted down before they ship the game?
Okay, so there are a few things that they still need to work on, and some things that they are working on. For one, they said that the new UI, isn't in the game currently, what we played today, and that they're working on finishing that for the release on the 28th.
That's the 28th this month?
28th of this month. They're doing an early release. And,
okay.
I
was going to say they've got the Founders Pack.
The early access. Yeah,
that's the early access release. Yeah. So they are getting the UI done, which, I mean, the UI itself didn't really bother me so much, but there were little things about it. So, for example, we were looking at like the skill tree that I was telling you guys about, where you can mount different abilities. Well, there's there's like the low level tiers, and then there's like level 20 plus tiers that we didn't get to play with because I'm not sure exactly why. But according to what the developers told us, those are they're kind of locked behind a skill experience.
Okay.
Like that we didn't really see. So for example, the reason why they said they weren't unlocked for us is because we hadn't used certain skills yet. Even though that like we were playing characters that were maxed out to level 45.
Is that the level cap for the game?
That's the level cap currently.
Okay.
So we were maxed, like a lot of characters that we had, and a few of us started new characters just to mess around with them. But the level capped 45 characters, they didn't have the level 20 plus, abilities. So that was kind of a weird thing. And we asked the developers, like, how do we unlock them? And they're like, oh, you have to use these certain abilities a certain amount of time.
Okay.
And we were like, well, how much are we supposed to use them? Like, is there a skill bar on each ability? And there wasn't. So there were these little, UI things that were like, how do we do this? It's not very clear on like what we're supposed to do.
So there was no like achievement tracker or anything like that gave you any type of indication, or anything really in game that gave you any indication that, hey, you're working towards this and you need X number of, this before you get the okay.
Yeah, and there were a few other things that they were talking about, like the cash shop. We didn't get to see what was in that, and they're not even really sure what they're going to be putting in that right now because, like I said before, like the payment model is different than the one in Japan or in Korea. It's going to be a buy to play model. So
that was going to be one of my next questions.
Yeah, and so it's instead of it being free to play with like lots of stuff in the cash shop, they're going with a cash shop that doesn't have anything that's pay to win.
Okay.
So we weren't really sure what that meant, was like what was going to be in there. But in this sense of a buy to play model, they really took on like the Guild Wars 2 idea of buy to play in the sense that anything that's in the cash shop, you can earn money in game to buy that. Like,
Okay.
Yeah, it's just like a conversion, like how Guild Wars 2 does with gems. So that was pretty cool. Like anything in game or anything in the shop that you see and you're like, man, I really want that. And if you work hard enough for it, you can convert out into a cash currency and buy it.
Excellent.
That's always great to hear.
I was gonna say, yeah. brings it back to like the Lotro free to play conversion where you to like grind out your TP points, right?
Yeah.
So them's the days. Them's the days.
But aside from that, it's just little things about them, just like skills. Sometimes you'd see a skill and it wouldn't say that it was AoE, and then they had little indicators that were supposed to indicate whether or not it was AoE or single target or what, or if it was a trap or what all these different things did. But whenever you moused over the skill and actually read what it didn't say that's what it did specifically, so it was a little bit confusing in certain circumstances.
Sure.
So that's another thing they said that they were going to be working on. It just all around, it's like a lot of little polished things that they really need to handle.
Okay.
But the main core and the main changes are already there. So it seems to be like it seems to be coming along. Pretty much by the 28th, it's going to be in a good enough state where I think a lot of people are going to be happy with it.
I was going to say it sounds like some of the things that are kind of the minor hangups of the game right now are just that. They're minor hangups. They're things that can be patched in, or at release date or after release date they can be patched in and fixed, and so it doesn't sound like there's not outside of the balance between, I suppose, PvP and with a mage and some type of melee class, little bit different there. But it sounds like it's on a pretty decent track. As far as MMOs go. Stephen, with your hands-on experience with this today, what would you say? Who would be the type of person that would really enjoy this MMO? Because we have a kind of a broad breadth of MMOs to draw from. Everything from the highly tactical and highly strategic to the mash all of the keys and win sort of thing. So where does Bless fall on kind of the continuum of MMOs?
Well, one of the things that they mentioned in the presentation was that they really want to make this as accessible for everyone as possible. So they added a lot of things to do. Now, one of the things that I found was really surprising, because I wasn't following Bless at all. So it surprised me to know that taming is a very big thing in this game. Taming animals, and there's over 660 animals that you can tame. And
good night. Got to catch them all. My word.
Yeah,
I like that.
So there's some little things about it, like in order to tame, you have to create taming scrolls, and there's like a little mini game that goes along with taming, where like whenever you come up to something and you want to tame it, like you have to. It's basically like stop the needle whenever you get into the space. Like it'll just go up and then you stop it, and then it does it a few times and then you capture it. So you need to craft the scrolls and you need to beat the mini game to tame an animal. But 660 different animals. The animals can be many of them can be mounts. Many of them are just companions. Like somebody was riding a hippo. I was riding a
like
wolf.
You do.
Yeah, like I got a whole bunch. Like I spent a good portion of my time, like whenever I ran by something that I was like, "What's that? I want it."
I want that.
Yeah, like they gave us like 100 scrolls. So like every time I ran by something that I didn't know what it was, like I had everything. I had like rats. I had like elk. I had like crocodiles. I had like anything I came like near. I was like, that thing's mine. And then I just like wrote it to see like why, like, like what I would look like riding a crocodile or something like that. It was like the coolest thing that I've ever seen.
I can already tell you what I'm going to spend most of my time doing in this game.
Ralph is going to be the very best, like no one ever was.
Darn right.
So with the scrolls, is it the same scroll for every creature, or are there like different types of scrolls dependent on the creature that you're trying to tame?
That's a good question, Dame, and I believe I'll answer that. The scrolls actually come in different strengths. So
okay, yep.
So like there were like low level scrolls, and then they went all the way up to like high level. Now they gave us all like the best scrolls that you could possibly have. So I was able to tame pretty much anything that I wanted to.
Okay.
And then of course, like there are some points that I didn't like about the taming. Primarily, like so you have like the mounts that you can use, and then you had flying mounts as well.
Okay.
Which are extremely special and rare. So flying mounts, you don't keep them permanently. Like if you obtain a flying mount, you only get it for about 7 days, and you can only get it in certain circumstances, such as like in PvP. If you have enough matches, then you can buy it from like a PvP store or something like that. Or so that was one thing I didn't really like, because in Guild Wars 2 I have my Griffin mount, and I mean it doesn't really fly. It's more like a glider that can flap its wings. But I mean, I love that thing. But in this game, it's like more of like true flying. So and then another thing I didn't like is that the companion pets, like for example, I picked up a fox pet that I thought was really cool, and it looked awesome. And you can have your fox pet out while you're riding a hippo, and like you have both your pets out. But the thing is that the companion pets don't help you in combat. So if you're thinking like, oh, I want a ranger where I can have like a bear and the bear can tank for me, that's not really a possibility at this time. What they do is as you level them up, they give you buffs. Like, for example, and they have kind of like more passive skills.
Sure. And
then they do have some active skills, such as like nothing really combat related, but more like combat aversion. Such as like stealth, like, oh, I can have a pet that whenever I level them up, like I can go stealth for a little bit and get past this mob so they don't attack me. Or I can, run really fast so that they can't catch me. Stuff like that. That was, it's cool, but I like the idea of your pets being active and helping you and having, a real companion. Especially with so many, like 660. Like, there's enough out there that you could have, like, like everyone can basically have like a completely different set, and I think that would just be really cool. But I kind of brought that up because like it's good for people who just if they want to get in there and play very casually and just like catch all the pets just to have them. There's that ability. Then they have 3 versus 3, 5 versus 5, 100 versus 100 PvP.
Okay. Now is that separate from the is the PvP like world PvP, or is it in a contained arena?
I think the 3v3 and 5v5 is contained in kind of like an arena gameplay, and it's not necessarily like an open world area.
Okay.
Now we didn't get to test any of that, but we tried to get into a 3v3 and it didn't really work because everyone was just freaking out about everything else. So I'm not really sure how it's going to work, but the thing is about the 100 versus 100, you will have kind of like the keep sieges and things like that, but it's never going to be like a total Zerg versus Zerg kind of thing.
Okay.
Because you will always have the 100 versus 100. So while one team might decide like, hey, we're going to get all 100 people together and just Zerg, that's not going to really work in these situations, because what they were saying is like small teams, can go around and do things. And like a Zerg might be able to capture like a small team here or a small team there, but it's never going to work. Like a Zerg can't be everywhere, and since you're not going to have like a bunch of new people showing up, you really have to plan your resources wisely. So it sounds like it's going to be a pretty cool system.
It almost sounds like it's a little more objective heavy for that one, which again prevents some of the zerging that happens in other games like that too. So that could be good. Now, my understanding too, I'll be honest, I was crunching a little before we got here. I was doing some reading and watching vids on it. My understanding is like after level 30, it is open world PvP. Is that true?
Yeah. So there is open world PvP, and I'm not really entirely certain on the flagging system. I got a lot of information about it, but I haven't got to review it all yet.
Sure.
So I am going to review more of that information from my article on Monday. But from what I'm to understand is they did have a lot of areas. Like, for example, there was one area that I ran through whenever I was starting out that was basically like an open world PvP area. Like there weren't any like monsters or mobs or anything like that. It was basically like, it seemed like it was just
straight.
Like it was all just like areas where enemies will run in and take it, or you have to defend it, kind of situation, like camp situations like that. I think that it's also important to note the world is humongous. Like it's a huge world, and the areas are kind of sectioned off a little bit. But in the area that I was running through, that was like more PvP focused. It was almost like they had like little corridors where like, they're kind of making you focus on like the battle instead of like just a huge battlefield where like somebody could be like all the way over there and you can't see them or something like that. They really make it to where, at least in the area that I was in, like if you have a group and someone else has a group, there's going to be a conflict. Like
there's choke points where those. Yeah.
Okay. So that was kind of a cool thing that I saw.
All right. So Bless comes out. You said May 28th. May 28th. It's good. And it's tell me a little bit about that's going to be on PC, right?
Yep, it is going to be on PC. Another question I asked, because this combo system, it was made for a controller. I mean, like it feels like, I mean, with a controller, I would probably like right now I'm like, I'm gonna play the game, but I don't know how long I'm gonna play the game. But with a controller, I'd be like, I could just kick back and play the game anytime because it just feels so good with a control pad. So they did say there's no controller support to start out with, but I did put in a request.
So you're saying there's a chance.
I told them straight up, I was like, this needs controller support, and they acknowledged that I said it, not that they were going to do it, but they acknowledged that they heard me say it. So
excellent. As I say, and it is supposed to launch on Steam, right? Is the official launch platform that's coming for?
Well, there you have it.
It's going to be on Steam, and it's going to be self-published.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Nice.
Steam controller maybe, but I don't think controller.
Yeah,
well,
that's a whole thing.
I mean, this last week, Steam did announce that there is support for the Nintendo Switch controller, so maybe that's going to be the thing. And we have a comment over on YouTube from the Lazy Lions Den that says no one PvPs with a controller. It's because they haven't done it right yet.
That's true. I would agree.
Hey, whenever I was playing DC Universe, I always PvP'd with a controller, and I always won. Everyone. Yeah. Like I was rocking it. Now it's a different system, but I think you could PvP with a controller as long as you're not playing something that's very AOE heavy. Like I think that it would play really well.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I think Terra has a pretty decent system that way. Like I play Terra on PS4, and I find the controller works awesome. Like I would prefer it there versus and I play keyboard and mouse as well, like on PC, and I'd take controller any day of the week, honestly, with the way the combos work in that game. So
what we really learned here is what we were speculating before the show, and that is that Steven is a learning computer, and. Neural net processor. It's a learning computer. We know that. So Steven, you have an article that's going to be coming out on MMORPG.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's gonna be a rough go at it because I have so much information. I'm gonna have to find a way to fit it all in there. And I don't really want to push out too much information about what the systems the Japanese version already have, because that's already widely been known. But I am going to touch on a little bit of everything. So,
all right,
yeah,
awesome.
So we will look forward to seeing your article over there. Any last questions about Bless before we move on?
Alf?
All right, everybody seems.
I've heard everything that I needed to hear.
I was gonna say, Ralph, you've been remarkably quiet.
Ralph would have some more questions.
He's planning his 660 catch right now. That's what he's working on. He's just mapping. He's gonna accomplish this.
You sold me on the Pokemon aspect. I'm down with that. I've been looking into Bless for a while, so a lot of information I did know, but I wanted to know a lot that you especially your hands-on experience with it, and see how it is. And after you told me about it, I'm sold. I'm down. I'm gonna get it.
Yeah. There's a question on. There's a question on YouTube that says it just asks for thoughts on this premium service. Is there a premium service with Bless that coincides with the kind of buy to play?
Yeah, so there is a premium service, and I do have some information on it, but I don't have it in front of me. But basically, so it's a buy-to-play system, like we said. Okay. So you buy the box, and then you play it for however long, forever. But then there's also kind of almost like a subscription service.
Okay.
And that's kind of why they have these different packs that you can buy. For example, the Founders Pack is $200 or something like that, and that kind of got leaked earlier today, from what I'm to understand. And people were kind of up in arms about what does that mean. Now, I don't think that it's necessary to have it, but it's kind of a good thing. Because of some of the stuff that you get with it, and I'm going to have to go through and say specifically what you do get, unless somebody has something to pull up about it. I know the information's out there. I have it all in my notes, but I don't have all my notes with me. But as far as the Founders Pack is concerned, after hearing what all it has in there, it also has an extra copy that you can hand out to your friends, and it has 90 days of this, the
premium service. Well, that's not entirely unheard of, though, for MMOs to do that, because we have games like Elder Scrolls Online that have done that, where they have the base. You can play the game, no subscription, but then you can also have a subscription, get the crowns to be able to spend within the in-game store. And I guess if you're invested in a game like that and you want the perks of getting every month having some spending money,
and that's what it is.
Okay.
With the Founders Pack, from what I'm to understand, they give you enough of whatever the cash currency is, that it pretty much pays for itself.
Okay.
So I mean that's how they usually do these kind of things. They always make that big first gesture of, hey, you put out all this money and we're going to make sure you're getting a good deal for it.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're a really big Bless fan, or you've been waiting for the game, or it's one of those situations where it would be great if you paid for it up front, but I think they may be doing the Guild Wars style, where you might be able to upgrade to it later as you go. But I would definitely say for the Bless fans, the Founders Pack might be the way to go if you're going to be playing it. You might.
And Steven, do we know, is there going to be anything that's going to be different between the Korean premium service and the North American one? I know that you said that there was a lot of changes from the game that came out in Asia and is now making its way over to North America. Was there any conversation about that during the event?
They did not mention any differences aside from the monetization policy of not being pay to win and being buy to play. So we're not really sure what the major differences are. Whenever we went into the cash shop, it was completely blank. Like they made the smart move of not putting anything in there because they knew like as soon as people started seeing what was in there, it's going to get out. And
anytime that you have microtransactions, you have room for outrage. So I mean, it's true. I mean, it's true. I mean, you could have like the most menial thing in there, and oh my word, there's a cash shop. But hey, the way that I look at it, with the premium services and stuff like that is that, hey, if you're invested in a game, like I have no problem. I have absolutely no problem supporting a company or giving extra money to a developer that they have given me a solid game, they've given me a solid experience, and have given me a reason to care about the game experience that you're a part of. So I mean, that would be. I mean, I guess that would be my take on premium services in MMOs. What do you guys think on that?
I agree 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And the only last thing that I'm going to really say about what's going on between now and when they're going to release, they did say that they're going to change the flow of combat a little bit. So I just want to prepare everyone for that because the people are going to watch my gameplay videos and they're going to say, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm going to say, "I don't know what you're talking about." And then but ultimately, especially for the mage, the way that he was building mana, they were saying like it's probably not going to end up like that because there were situations where I'd get into a group of guys and then I would be all out of mana and I'd just be like running around and like flailing my arms because you have to wait for the mana to regenerate. So they said they're going to kind of fix some of those little issues here and there and that they're still working on it. Like the flow of combat, because it is a big change from the Korean version and the Japanese version. So yeah, I mean, definitely when you guys watch the video on Monday, just know that if you see a portion where it doesn't look like I'm doing anything because I'm all out of mana, just know that that's being taken care of.
Nice. Well, hey, we're gonna move on to something that is just as controversial as cash shops, with a little bit of a discussion about Destiny 2. I think that probably one of the most controversial pieces of writing that I've done on GameSpace has been my review of Destiny 2. Like, still to this day, months and months later, I'm still being excoriated over my score on it, which I stand by the way, and I will take that to my grave. Actually, no, I am in the process of playing through Warmind right now, the expansion that just dropped this week, and we'll be doing kind of a retrospective on the year with Destiny 2. And so one of the big questions that kind of came out of this and that I really approached this week with was, is the game still relevant? The announcement happened. I think we talked about it on the GameSpace game show one night. You guys knowing that I was a huge Destiny fan when the game was released, and I was like, yeah, I know, and I haven't really even watched the trailer for it yet. What is the life expectancy of a game, or when we talk about MMOs and we talk about like kind of the buy-in and stuff like that, there's a certain expectation or appetite, I guess, that we gamers have. What's reasonable, with a game like Bless, okay? So you've got the possibility of not just an initial buy-in, but you also have the possibility of actually subscribing and getting some skin in the game with stuff like this. I just want to hear from you guys. Like, what do you guys think about what should the longevity of a game be, or what should be the expectation of relevancy for a game, whether it's something like Bless or an MMO or something like Destiny?
Well, you run into a couple issues there because a lot of that depends on the genre of game, right? Like That is a big component of this, and I think that's where Destiny falls into a lot of issue. This has been something I've rolled around in my head forever, because Destiny's in this weird space where it doesn't know what it wants to be half the time. And don't get me wrong, I love Destiny. I played a lot of Destiny. I mean, Dame, you and I played Destiny forever and a day, and even Destiny 2 we played a lot of. But honestly, it can't decide what it is, and I think that's part of the problem. Because sometimes it wants to be an MMO until being an MMO gets too hard or something, and then it's not. So then when it comes to relevancy, how long should it be relevant? Well, as a gamer, I don't know, because I don't know if it's an MMO or not. And that's my struggle with Destiny and Destiny 2, because same thing, the expansion dropped. I'm like, oh yeah, I still have to go play the other one because I forgot about it. But so with Destiny specifically, since that's what we're talking about, I struggle with it because I don't know what it is. And as a result, I don't know how to engage it. Like with an MMO, like World of Warcraft is an example, because that's one that I still play. It's an MMO. It's built for longevity, and so I play it until I've played all the content I want to play, and then I wait for the next big content dump and I move on. But I know it's an MMO, so my mind's there. With Destiny, I don't know if it's a co-op FPS. I don't know if it's an MMO. I don't know if it's somewhere in between. And so because some of those hard lines aren't drawn for me, I struggle a little bit. But that's just me. So
I echo your sentiments exactly, because when Destiny came out, I bought the white PS4 at 12 a.m. in the morning on release.
Yep.
Because I was a big fan of Destiny. I was like, I want that game. I want that PS4. I'm going to get it. But with Destiny 2, I bought the game. I have not played either of the expansions. And that's because I don't know if I really want to invest my time into it, because I don't know if it's an MMO or a co-op. MMOs, I can invest my time, I can spend my money, and I can know, like, maybe somewhere down the line, I'm going to get something else from it. Or I can always come back to it and it's still going to be there. Destiny 2, who knows what could happen? It could, the company could decide, we're going to make Destiny 3, and then guess what? The player base for Destiny 2 drops.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. And I think that hurt them with when they jumped from Destiny to Destiny 2, was there wasn't even enough legacy carryover and things like that from D1, and that bothered me. But that's just
me too. I agree.
Steven, you're kind of nodding back and forth.
I was gonna say, man.
I mean, I'm of a different mind on this one. Like, for me, the longevity of a game kind of ends when when they stop really supporting the game, I guess. Not really supporting it in the sense like, hey, we're not going to release any more expansions, because the way that I feel, it's like when you're just putting out more of the same, you've pretty much just like given up on like really wanting to support the game for to bring in like new people or to change things. And that's kind of what I feel like Destiny's problem was in the first place, because while it was a great game, and not going to knock the 10 of 10 from Dame, but I am going to say, like, when I remember, like, when you gave that score, and you were on the GameSpace Game Show, I think, that the following week, and we kind of talked a little bit about how do you feel about the people who said that the new Destiny is just not different enough. And I think that that's really where, like, it kind of started to feel like, maybe they're just not really supporting the game as much, because they haven't kept up with like what players want. Like, players want more, but they don't want just more of the same. They want, an evolution, so to speak, which is kind of, that's kind of like what happened with Guild Wars. And going into Guild Wars 2, it was a big evolution of a game, and a lot of the player base went that way. And say what you will, Guild Wars 1 was better because of this, but it really wasn't. Guild Wars 2 is a great game, but now it's kind of getting to the point, like they've added mounts, and now like we're starting to see Guild Wars kind of go into this whole feeling of like, let's start talking about water combat, and it's like, no, like no, just like running out of like ideas on like. People hate water combat. They don't want more of it. Like, you're just like, you're screwing things up. So I think it's like whenever you start seeing developers kind of just like put content out just because they have to put content out, but they're not really moving the game forward. They're not really moving the genre forward. At that point, I feel like just stop supporting it, do something new. Like, we don't want to see the same old in releases every single time. So, I mean, that's my feeling on it.
See, and that's where I will agree with you, because and it's exactly like what was said, is that they did not spend enough time with Destiny 1 for it to feel like it's an evolution when moving on to Destiny 2. They just kind of moved on really fast. You get, how many expansions do we have for Destiny 1? Like 2 or 3 in the span of how many years?
I think it was like 5 total, wasn't it? Well, content drops, I should say.
Yeah, but and those came really quick, pretty much. And then they said, all right, and now Destiny 2.
Yeah.
And so with Destiny 2, if we're not going to get a lot of time with that, then what's the point?
It's like you just don't want to get burned on it.
Well, and I think this comes back to Matt's original point, which was, what does the game want to be, or what is the game? One of the things that I went into the review with Destiny 2 was, Destiny 1, I really feel, I'm sorry, let me back up here a second. Destiny 2 was the game that I think that Destiny 1 wanted to be. And
Agreed.
it didn't quite get there. And so for me, like, feeling left like I was in that place of like, I know what Bungie is capable of because I've seen what they've produced in the past. I know their track record, and full disclosure, I've been a Bungie fan for years. I grew Marathon. Their first FPS was like, or not, I shouldn't say, no, I'm sorry. It wasn't their first FPS, but their first sci-fi FPS was like one of my favorite games. So influential for me as a gamer. And so like, that's the bar that I have in going into this. And so when I went into Destiny 2 and went like, okay, it's like Grimoire the game, like, all of the lore then is in the, the Grimoire that I have to go out of the game then to read, like, I don't want to do that. But then getting into Destiny 2, this is where I really feel like they found a little bit more of their bearings with how they wanted to tell the story that they had to tell.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that.
Now,
yep.
That being said, they made missteps along the way. And that's where, like, in retrospect, having, a couple months out from the game, this is why I'm coming back to revisit. Okay, what did I say in my original review? Do those things still hold water? And now that we're 2 expansions into the game, what do I think about it? What do we think about it now? One of the things that I really honestly have spent like maybe 2-3 hours with the new expansion. But I'm also already seeing a couple of little things that they added. What is it called? Escalating events, I believe, is what they called. What they're called. That are kind of some new public events that they have taking place within the world that kind of start with some like invasion sort of things into an area, and then as you progress in the invasion, it ultimately leads to like a kind of big bad at the end that you then dispatch. But so I mean, I think they're trying some things. What I wonder though is if it's too little, too late. I think that's one of my big fears for this, because I think that there's more story to tell, and I think that there's that. By and large, it is an enjoyable game to play. The shooting is the mechanic aspects of the game. For me at least, it feels like a really good shooter. Like it handles very, very well. And I love the music of it too. So I mean, that's
yeah.
Well, I think one of the things that's important in this too, like when it comes to expansions, right? I mean, Destiny keeps saying, "Yeah, we're bringing out expansions." They feel like DLC packs.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Like we talk about,
Yes.
there is a dramatic difference there.
There is. Yeah.
And I think that comes back to they don't know what they want to be. I mean, when I look at expansions, I think of some of, again, going back to like World of Warcraft or even Lotro, because I played a lot of that, and Rift. I mean, they dramatically changed the landscape of the game. And I don't necessarily mean the geography. I just mean how things played. Mechanics changed dramatically. You look at talent rebuilds, class rebuilds, things like that. It dramatically changed how the game worked and functioned and played. And I think that's one of the things that keeps MMOs progressive, keeps them relevant, is that there's, when you go back in, it's not, oh yeah, I get more story. I mean, don't get me wrong, lore is great, story is awesome, but you're entering essentially a new or a revised version of the game, for better or for worse, because not every expansion is great. But with Destiny 2, and I think this is the problem they run into again, is that they're just dropping DLC packs, which are great, story is awesome, but you got to call it what it is. Because especially for MMO players, coming off an MMO and you tell me I'm getting an expansion, I have certain expectations in my head about what an expansion is going to do to my play experience. And unfortunately, with Destiny 2, it's like, oh, it's some more story. I mean, that's fine, but that's not really what I want out of an expansion. So again, it's this mixed message we're getting, I think, is causing a lot of the issue. But again, I think I'm beating a dead horse at this point, so I'll just leave it. That's good.
That's all right, because I think we might be talking about a dead horse, unfortunately. So, speaking about dead things, Thanos joined Fortnite this last week.
There's a segue.
There's a segue for you. There's a new gameplay mode for Fortnite, a solo map with where Thanos, the Mad Titan, enters the gameplay in the form of the Infinity Gauntlet dropping into the map, and then it just kind of becomes Thanos versus all until everybody's dead, I guess.
Yep.
So this is kind of like, one of those big, I guess we're like in the season of crossovers. Like we had Infinity War, just had Deadpool 2 drop today, and now we have this here. So what do you guys think of Thanos joining the Battle Royale?
I have flashbacks to Juggernaut mode in Halo. To be honest with you, like that's where I go automatically with this. Again, I think it's great they bring it to Fortnite. It's cool to see reimaginings of modes, but honestly, that's what it reminds me of. It's Juggernaut, which is cool. So.
I agree with them, because I was watching some people do gameplay of it, and I found it interesting, that one person can get the gauntlet, but if you kill him, then you can get the gauntlet.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
so,
it looks like once you have the gauntlet, or once somebody has the gauntlet, then that person is automatically highlighted on the map, so everybody knows where he is. You get like a boosted skill set, boosted jump, and stuff like that to be able to wreak havoc. So, Steven, you're kind of the resident Marvel guy here. So,
I mean, I love it. I do. I love that, if you're going to do a crossover, do Marvel, because, I'm a Marvel guy. So, but you know what it kind of reminds me of? It reminds me of like playing Battlefront and like getting like a hero, or spawning in as like a hero or something like that. And I used to love doing that, but what I loved more was playing like a clone or something and like killing the Jedi. Like that was my favorite thing. So I definitely I think it's an interesting mode. I think it's really cool. What really strikes me as interesting is that Epic got the license to do that.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
As fast as they did too. That's what's impressive to me. It was like overnight.
Took no time at all.
I mean,
give or take.
It looks like it was overnight to us. We don't know how long that process has been in there. But hey, I mean, right now Fortnite is printing money, and Disney loves to print money. So, I mean, it's like a match made in fiduciary heaven. So,
and that's why that I'm starting a rumor that Epic's going to be making a Marvel game sometime soon, because at this point, I mean, why would they not? I mean, if
can you imagine like a Marvel like battle royale?
I could, and I have thought of it, and I think that they would call it Secret Wars, and I think that it would be great.
You've thought a lot about this.
I have thought about it. I really did, and I don't mind talking about it, but we don't have time to go into that today.
No, we don't, because talking about ruining somebody's day, like I just ruined Steven's, because we're not going to talk about the thing that he loves. Walmart Canada may have let some cats out of the bag with some sketchy box art for games and potential titles that have not yet been announced. So we have a YouTube user, I'm sorry, not YouTube user, Twitter user, Wario64, that has this listing of just a bunch of, it's a huge list of games, everything from Borderlands 3, Rage 2, Gears of War 5, a new Assassin's Creed title. I mean, they even had the Final Fantasy VII remake on there. So, I mean, you know, they must know. Apparently, Walmart Canada knows something that we don't, because we haven't gotten any information on that game. So, what do you guys think? I mean, we're kind of like a month out from E3. Do you think that Walmart Canada, you know, kind of spilled the beans a little bit? Just they're kind of your people. So
I was gonna say, absolutely. Just looking at the list of titles, I would say some of this seems pretty valid. You know, Gears 5, I think it's about time for Gears 5. Which, side note, I heard it's coming to PC too. I don't know how true that is, but I'd be very excited if it did. Anyway, Rage 2 kind of threw me though.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That seems like left field. I mean, you know, Rage from a technical standpoint was cool at the time because it was released in I think the new iTech 5 or something at the time engine, but the game itself was terrible. But the tech was cool. The tech was cool. Like, it had a new rendering engine and stuff anyway. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe some of this stuff is probably coming out. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, you first.
All I want to know is if you guys want to play Borderlands 3 with me.
Yes. Hands down, yes. I love Borderlands.
And we'll be playing on the PlayStation 4. So
yes. Fine with that.
Yes. There we go. Hey, it is decided. We will we'll trade user information after the show. And smash that pre-order button hard.
Truth.
Yeah, that will definitely be a thing. Well, hey, we're coming down to the very end of the show here. We're running a little bit longer, but we had some technical difficulties on the front end. Steven, again, thank you so much for all of that blessed information that you had to share with us, and for all of the hard work of tunneling through to set up the show here today. So we're gonna roll into our next segment of what are you playing this week, what are you watching this week, and what do you have to plug. So we're gonna go ahead and throw it over to Ralph. So Ralph, what you got, man?
I've been playing The Council. Episode 2 just dropped recently. Nice. And I love that game. I love the intrigue of it and interacting with the characters in there. Mm-hmm. And I've also been playing Maple Story 2 because I was able to get into that closed beta test thanks to PR. So that's been great. Also, just to plug this, you can check out mine and Kiwi's article over on MMORPG. We both have an article up over there. Just go ahead and check it out to see our thoughts on it.
Excellent.
But both games awesome. As far as other plugs, on Twitch, Triple Wolfie. I don't remember my Twitter, Instagram, or DeviantArt, but I'm sure you can find it if you just go to my Twitch. It might be there.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
All right, Steven, what about you, man?
Well, you know, every show I got to plug at the podcast. Please check out the podcast because we want you to, and it would make us happy. And, you know, I think it'll make you happy too, because you'll get to listen to all of our previous shows, and they're all pretty good. And then, more importantly, I'd like to also tell everyone to join in next week, because we are going to have a very special guest, two very special guests with Brad McQuaid and Chris Perkins from Pantheon. So we are going to be talking all about that for the entire show. And as far as what I'm playing, I played Blessed today, and that's about as far as I've gotten.
Nice. Nothing wrong with that. All
right, Matt, what about you, man?
Yeah, I actually just finally got a code for Siberia. Siberia. Yeah. For PS4, actually, and just dove into it. I was playing actually before we came on, and it's a really interesting puzzler. So it's kind of a roguelike puzzler, and I'm interested to get into that. So playing that. Went back and picked up No Man's Sky again.
All right.
Because of all the patches, I'm going, all right, I got to check this out again. Yeah, those kind of my main games right now that I'm on. And then God of War as well, because I just can't put that game down. It's so good. But I'm going to stop there because I'll just do another mini review on that. So I'm going to leave it right there. But if you want to find me, I am on the Twitters. I'm at MB Keith, or you can actually catch me at Roll the Level as well, which is the podcast that Dame and I host. We do some YouTube streaming and things like that as well. So just at Roll the Level, basically find us. Sounds good.
Indeed. Mm-hmm. All right. As for me, I just finished playing a game called Inked. That is a really beautiful hand-drawn puzzler that is a pretty interesting. It's a pretty interesting story. So that review should be going up on GameSpace here relatively soon. Like I said, I just started to check out the new expansion content for Destiny 2. As far as watching, I watched all of Cobra Kai.
Nice.
Last Friday, and it was remarkable, absolutely remarkable. So if you have YouTube Red, you owe it to yourself to go watch that. And if you don't have YouTube Red, you can watch, I think, the first 2 episodes for free. So I would.
You can watch the whole thing for free. That's what I did. They give you a free 30-day trial of YouTube Red if you've never signed up for it before.
There you go. So
and I just signed up for it, canceled it immediately, and then I got to watch the entire season. And I'll spend the $10 when they come out with a season 2, and not a day before.
Hey, that's fair.
It's good, and it is good to have standards. Good to have standards.
And it is confirmed. We are getting a season 2 of Cobra Kai. So
nice.
It has been remarkably well received. So anyway, as far as plugs go, like you said, you got that article coming out. I had one come out this last week on MMORPG on the RX 580. It's by the Power Color Red Devil RX 580. Had a really interesting test bench for the graphics card benchmarking and review, so you can check that out there. But like Matt, you can find me at Roll the Level on Twitter or at Pastor Dame. Roll the Level is our podcast, a running conversation about life, God, and video games in no particular order. So you can find that there. But that is all we have this week for the GameSpace Game Show. Make sure you join us next week. You're not going to want to miss it. All things Pantheon, all the time. And we will see you next week on the GameSpace Game Show.